Welcome to the 50 for 50 podcast for Sycamore View Church of Christ in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm your host, Anna Moser. In 2028, our church will turn 50. As we look forward to that celebration, we're taking a look back at the stories and people who have shaped our church. 50 stories over 50 months to celebrate 50 years. I encourage you to jump on our website, sycamoreview.org/50-4-50 to watch a short video telling this month's story. We'll be diving deeper into that story here with a special guest each month. So let's jump right in. I'm here today with two of my favorite people. I don't know if I should even say that because other people are listening to this that I love, but two people that are family to me here in Memphis. Our executive minister, Jim Hinkle.
Good morning.
And one of our shepherds, Randy Frederick.
Good morning.
I want to just have you guys introduce yourselves and kind of how long you've been at Sycamore View, what your various roles have been here along the way.
Well, I've been here since 2005. I was the youth minister for 15 years, and I've been the executive minister in 3 weeks, it'll be 4 years,
Wow.
Believe it or not. And Stacy and I came here from Texas, and we've raised our children. We've added children through lots of different kinds of methodologies. Wait, that sounds right. You're going to have to edit that one right there. But our family has grown, and we've really been blessed to be at Sycamore View for the last 18 plus years.
Yeah, well, my wife Brenda and I came to Memphis in 1976, and we began worshiping at a congregation called Jackson Avenue. And then when Jackson Avenue moved to our present location, Sycamore View, in 1978, we were here and have been here ever since. We have endeavored to be involved in the church in many different roles. I have been a shepherd since 2004, initially very involved with youth ministry, and worked with Jim and Stacy and the other people in the youth ministry during that time. And when Jim transitioned to executive minister, it came at a time when I was at a transition point in youth ministry with the teens that I was working with. So I kind of transitioned out to open the way for other people.
And we're a package deal.
Yeah.
And continued to work with Jim, and continued to be a shepherd and just love Sycamore View. It's home to us. Couldn't think about being anywhere else.
Yeah, I love that. We have copies behind you of the Jackson Action bulletins from back in the day. So
glad to see they're still around.
Yeah, your face is probably in some of those bulletins.
But let's not go there.
We won't go all the way back. Well, it's kind of crazy to think you've been a shepherd for almost 20 years, or this year will be 20 years.
In July, it will be 20 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, I know that kind of shocks me too.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But it's been a interesting but very fulfilling and enriching role for me, hopefully for some other people too.
Definitely. Lots of impact in those 20 years. Well, this month, our story is about kind of the transition our church went through from elders to shepherds and kind of the study of they smell like sheep and how to kind of change the way that we look at elders as less of a board of directors and more of a personal shepherding model. So I kind of want you guys to talk about that distinction. There's a lot of weight that people probably carry with the word elder or shepherd. So what was your experience with that in the church? And then how have you seen our church kind of change the meaning of those words?
Well, the term elder for so many people and for such a long period of time has seemed to be, the impression was that it was more like a board of directors, more of a business type model, CEO, board of directors type model. And unfortunately, looking back on it, that's something that elders kind of accepted as their role. But in 2002, 2003, the shepherds or the elders here at Sycamore View began a study, a year-long study in association with the Southwest congregation out of Jonesboro with Lynn Patterson. I'm not Lynn Patterson, excuse me.
Lynn Anderson.
Lynn Anderson.
Yeah.
Lynn Anderson, who for about a year did some mentoring about the role of elders, shepherds, and used his book, They Smell Like Sheep. That began a prayerful discernment about what the role of elder is really like. And it turns out that we really felt like that we needed to be more shepherds than elders, or in the traditional sense. You know, building off of scriptural descriptions of Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And through several iterations of how that looked, we began to try to be shepherds rather than just a board of directors. And that has been something that has seen some wins. It's seen some things that didn't work as well, but it's always been a constant attempt to become more shepherd-like than what people traditionally think of as an elder.
Yeah, that's well said. For me, I came in to Sycamore View when this transition was being implemented, and I remember speaking to Lynn Anderson, who was the preaching minister at the Highland Church previous to when I was there. I was the youth minister there, and I remember calling Lynn and talking to him about the possibility of going to Sycamore View, and he just, because where I had been, I know you and I both have really great experiences with the Highland Church in Abilene, but they were such a healthy church, and they were 10, 15, 20 years into implementing this shepherding model. And I'd never seen anything like it, really. I'd come from a great church in Nashville, a church I loved dearly, but we did not have the concept of shepherding at an elder level. And that was really challenging to me, is kind of one of the reasons I needed to be elsewhere. And so when I found that at Highland, there was just this thought, I'll never go to another church that doesn't have a shepherding model among their leadership. And so finding out that Sycamore View was stepping into that was really awesome. And it's just a fundamental shift in what it means to be a leader. Is it about authority and decision-making, or is it primarily about relational capacity and caring and pastoral work? And so, traditionally, especially in Churches of Christ, when we've talked about elders, we've gone to the pastoral epistles, and we go to 1 Timothy, we go to Titus, and we look at these kind of qualifications. But I think what Lynn did for our shepherds, and what I've learned being here, is that just as important as those, if not more, are passages like John 10, where Jesus is the good shepherd. And there's this level of intimacy where he knows them and they know him, and names are known, and they feel safe and they flourish. And then Ezekiel 34 is another passage which I think John 10 builds on, where it's not Jesus in Ezekiel 34, but it's God himself saying, there are bad shepherds among you, and the bad shepherds are people who are in it for themselves, and they're not there primarily to care for the flock, to care for the people that are under their charge. And so God says, I myself will become their shepherd. And so I think the model, the leadership model here has continued to evolve, where primarily we're saying being a leader, being an elder at Sycamore View still retains authority, and there's still decision making, but primarily it's about being among the people, caring for the people. And that's the measure of, I guess, success, how close our shepherds look like the good shepherd in John 10, which is really beautiful imagery.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Is there any other part from the study or from that book that you've really held on to, Randy, as a shepherd over the years that you go back to?
Yeah, thinking back on it, there's so many things in Lynn's work that are just so impactful. But I think that the biggest thing that came from the teaching in the book, as well as from the scripture, when you sit and you study and meditate over the scripture and then see it put into action, it's the relational, or as it's been put, the incarnational ministry, the getting to know people and knowing who they are, knowing them and them knowing you. That sets the stage for growth spiritually, spiritual maturity, walking together down a path of discipleship, not just as it's been put. Shepherds don't drive their sheep. Okay, they lead them, and I think that that's the picture, and that's what I take away from the teaching from scriptures primarily, but also Lynn's book, is that that's what shepherds are supposed to do. They're supposed to lead, and in order to lead, you have to know where you're going. And so it's not just a matter of leading, but it's also a matter of growing yourself, okay? So that you walk together with people down a path of discipleship, not just being there for when things go wrong, but also working with families and individuals here at Sycamore View on how to go down that path of discipleship. And I think that rather than just having times when things are not right, or things are going bad, or there are crisis times or stressful times, having developed core values, having developed commitments, are things that shepherds have as a framework to help lead our families and our individuals down that path. And again, we try to follow those, and we try to lead other people to follow them as well. So
that's really good. Shortly after I got here in 2016, Verlin Harp led us through this book again, because I'm sure over those several years since doing it the first time, we get new shepherds all the time. And so he kind of led us through the book. And then in 2019, I think it was around then, we went kind of back to a model of assigning every family or family unit to a personal shepherd. And the timing of that is looking back on it right before COVID and going into a time where we really needed to keep up with who was in our flocks. So since we've done that transition, I guess in 2019, what are the strengths and challenges of having a personal shepherding model like that, where there's family units assigned to shepherds? What have you seen of the strengths and challenges of that?
Yeah, I think it was a really strategic time that God had that we didn't know how important it would be to be able to kind of have more of a almost kind of granular type of feel. Because right now, each of our shepherds, we have 18, and all of them are assigned a certain number of households. And I think it varies from like 11 households up to maybe 23, I think is the largest number of households. Right. And the lower number are the more recently added shepherds. Not because they can't handle it, just to be clear. But I think the strengths, I witness the strengths when I stand in the hallway with Randy and somebody from his shepherding group runs down the hall and he knows their name and he knows their children's names, even though he may not have, just like a ongoing natural overlap with that family. They're in his shepherding group, so he knows them. And so if you multiply that out times 18, that's the strength of it, right? That every shepherd it may not know everybody, but they know somebody or somebody's. And that's the beauty of it. So theoretically, nobody gets kind of lost in the shuffle. And that's one of the hardest things about modern day just Christianity and Christian community, right? People treat church like just a place you go or something you do culturally instead of part of a living, breathing system of life-giving community together. So to be able to say, well, you've got like this group of people, just keep up with them, Randy. And that's the strength. The challenge is keeping up with them, right? And we've got
at times,
we've got lots of people here who, not lots. I mean, there's a number of people at Sycamore View who really don't care to be shepherded, or they've had such negative experiences with church authority, or with authority, or with men, just in their lives, that the idea of feeling safe or being able to trust people in that space, that's a real challenge that we've done a lot to try to address, but it's still a shortcoming. And the other challenge that I'll say, and I know you may be thinking, why is the non-shepherd answering all the challenges? Because one of my main roles is to serve the shepherds, and so I feel like I'm kind of the setup guy for all of our shepherds as new members come in, and if they're doing well, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing well. But the other challenge is just the math of it. We need more shepherds. I would love for all of our shepherds to have a dozen households and kind of cap it at that number. That seems to be like a pretty apostolic number, pretty good biblical number. But we just don't. And, we consistently battle not having just numerically enough shepherds who are willing to share the load and share the burden. So those are the things I would say are the challenges, the strengths and the challenges from our shepherding model.
Yeah, first of all, God's timing is always right, okay, for the transition to the type of shepherding model we have now. And I think I mentioned earlier that initially there have been some iterations of the shepherding model for when this transition began. I believe, I'm not certain about the number, but 8 or 9 shepherds that were trying to shepherd the entire congregation, which was a lot. And it became very difficult just logistically to do that. We then transitioned into a model where shepherds were shepherding life group leaders and working through that plan. But then there were people who weren't a part of a life group. And so we even had a non-life group. Okay, so
pre-life group,
pre-life group, okay, pre-life group, whatever the term is. So that trying to be as inclusive as possible. That's when going through that's when the decision, we felt like we needed more shepherds, and as Jim's already pointed out, and eventually got to the point where we felt like we could go back to shepherds being assigned family units. Okay, and I want to say this right now. While shepherds, the group of shepherds that we have now are obviously biblically chosen, and the model is a model that tries to mimic or at least imperfectly follow what Jesus was the good shepherd. It's something that is not completely embodied in the group of shepherds. There are a lot of people in Sycamore View who are shepherding, and they're not considered, quote, shepherds, unquote. But and we love that because we feel like that's one of our goals, is to develop people along that path of discipleship and love for Jesus, that they become shepherds, whether they have the title, quote unquote, or not. They are doing shepherding. And that is just a phenomenal thing that we're seeing, and we're loving that. But we do need more shepherds to actually fulfill roles. But it's a wonderful thing to see how God is working through that.
Yeah, and each of us as a minister has a personal shepherd. And so, Jim, your personal shepherd is Randy, and you guys have had that relationship. Was that since you got here?
It is.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's why I said we're a package deal.
Package deal.
Yeah, when I came, Randy and Brenda's youngest daughter, Casey, she just graduated. So he was kind of familiar with the youth ministry. And they're like, well, let's put the new elder with the new minister. And little did we know that would start a whole series of adventures that have taken us all across the world, and
I said, God's timing is always right.
It is. Many remote places within the United States, and some places where you can flush toilet paper. Some places where you can't.
Even in Tennessee.
Somewhere you don't even have it, where you got to pack your own. So, so having Randy as a personal shepherd, which let me just say a word kind of about that model with our ministers. Yeah. It's really, it's a gift. Randy is a gift to me personally. I don't know. I'd probably still be in ministry. I don't know that I'd still be at Sycamore View without the steadying presence of Randy in my life. Pretty much 3 out of 4 weeks on an ongoing basis for the last 18 years. And he's there to care for me, to encourage me, but he also does so many ministry things alongside me. And so I just feel like we're in it together, and that makes all the difference. But each of our ministers has a shepherd, and that shepherd, we ask them to meet with the minister on a regular basis. I don't know if anybody does it quite like Randy. It might be more like a month or every 6 weeks or so. But I think it's one of the really personal encouragement support systems that we have for our ministers, to have an elder who, when you have a crisis or when there's a meeting or when somebody goes to an elder, Joe has your back, right? And I know Randy has my back, and I don't have to feel like I have to be in all these meetings or all these conversations all the time, because I know that where I'm coming from is being represented. And that's not the case in a lot of churches. And so it really is special. So I'm thankful for the, 6 elders that are serving as personal shepherds right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How's that relationship been for you, Randy?
Well, I've told you.
Time consuming.
While we do meet 3 out of 4 weeks out of the month, it's not something that it's never something that I wake up thinking, oh, I've got to go meet with Jim today. Mm-hmm. It's always just such a blessing to me. And I've told Jim on more than one occasion, I'm more than happy to say here, sometimes I'm not sure who the shepherd in the group is when there's just the two of us, because it's a mutual thing. I mean, we strengthen each other, okay? And getting to know Jim, getting to know his heart, getting to know what he's going through, and how can I help? How can I, check up on his physical health, his mental health, his spiritual health, okay? And how can he check up on mine, okay? Sometimes we think that just because somebody's a minister, that they've got it all figured out. Well, all ministers are human beings. All ministers follow the good shepherd, but why do they not need somebody to walk alongside them and be there for them to have their back, and to know who they are, so that when situations occur, this person, their thoughts, their heart, and it's just really a blessing for me to be able to do that, and I look forward to the times that I get to spend with Jim and with Stacy and his kids, and it's one of those things that it's a blessing for me. It's something I look forward to being able to do, as I do with the rest of my flock, I guess, the rest of my people in my group. And I love being able to connect with them as much as possible. Sometimes it's easier than others, but it's a blessing every time I get to do it.
Well, and he's committed to his craft, because when he prays for me, he names all my children, and that's 9 names, 7 children, and 2 of them have double names.
Well, that would be true.
Sometimes I can't even come up with the names.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm asking everybody at the end of our podcast episodes to say a 1-sentence prayer for our church. And at the end, we're hoping to put all those together to kind of have a beautiful prayer for our church as we hit 50 years in 2028 and look beyond that. What the prayers and hopes for Sycamore View are. So I'm going to give each of you a chance to add your prayer to that.
Sure. Yeah, my prayer is that we just be a strong sycamore tree where people can see Jesus.
My prayer is that through our relationships, we'll become more connected with Jesus Christ and more connected with one another, so we grow in unity and strength and along the path of discipleship.
Amen.
Amen. Be sure to hop on our website to check out the video of Randy talking to us about this transition for our shepherds here at Sycamore View. And we encourage you to like, subscribe, comment on our podcast, share it with other people you think would be encouraged by it. That would be awesome. And next month, join us back here and we'll be talking about one of our strategic partners, Harding School of Theology. See you next time.